Welcome to a new update, and today we're going to discuss the Bitcoin correction. Of course, we've lost a few levels and we've got a few major events happening during the week. But before we're going to continue, make sure to subscribe and like this YouTube update and check out my Twitter and Instagram. Especially my Instagram, I'll be posting more of my personal view on the markets, which I'll be starting off today. When we're looking at the markets, of course, we are dropping down quite heavily. And there were several reasons for that, and there are several events taking place. First of all, we've got the Luna foot that is happening as we got the DPEG of the stable currency, and through that the assets has to be sold to actually get the peg back up. That would or could be a reason why we saw the correction taking place at this point. Then second, we've seen some very strange volume yesterday when the price was relatively stable. We've seen orders coming by with 500 to 1000 Bitcoin in 1 minute, which is kind of strange on a Sunday. Then we've got the event today, which is Putin speaking in Russia, and he didn't really say anything special, through which the result is that the markets are not really moving at all based on that fact. And then the most important one, as everything is still correlated towards the DXY and the Fed, is the CPI data that comes out on Wednesday, which is going to be decisive for the markets on which way it's going to go. If the inflation is going to drop a little bit, it could be an argument for the Fed to actually start slowing down the hikes and the tapering, resulting into a kickoff of the markets for the final stage of the bull cycle, as I think that the crisis is going to start within 1.5 to 2 years. Question becomes, should you be selling your crypto based on this fact? Of course, the markets can still have a further correction, but I guess the overall consensus of starting to sell your crypto is relatively late. I think the downwards, downwards pressure, or the downwards movements and the downwards pain that you could be having with the assets itself is getting relatively limited, and the upside potential is getting way higher than the downside risk. So instead of starting to sell your crypto at this point, it could be better to actually start looking for investments, as we have been sharing some of those higher time frame levels with Chainlink and with some other altcoins that have been into a bear market for a year and are actually getting into territories that I would be looking at potential long zones. And if you want to start selling your crypto at this stage, of course, if you want to trade, that's fine. But if you want to start selling your crypto at this stage, it is the exact opposite of buying crypto during May or April 2021. Why would you want to buy if there's something so high at that stage already, or it's looking vertical? It's the same as when you start selling your crypto at this stage. It is the opposite of what you should be doing, but you're doing it because the sentiment is so bad and the expectations are that Bitcoin hits 8K, 14K, all those levels, which is excessive or overextended and excessive bear market euphoria or bears euphoria, which is the same with bulls euphoria, which is the expectations that Bitcoin was going to 200K last year, etc. So that's what I'm saying at this point. I'm looking at entries instead of looking at sells. And I think that the altcoins are going to follow suit with Bitcoin. And I think that Wednesday is going to be super important. So should you be selling your crypto? I think you should not be selling your crypto. And what we're looking at with the markets when we get towards the DXY and the Bitcoin, that's what we're discussing in the charts. So when we're looking at the TA of Bitcoin at this point, there's basically a level that is currently important to watch. Of course, we've lost this one, and because we have been losing 37.5, all those lows got triggered out here and the liquidity has been taken. And given that we've also got the additional fear on macroeconomics, the hikes, etc., the losing 37.5 cascaded into further downwards momentum, and then we're basically looking at this level at 30k, which is still an untested one, and we got one at 32.5, as then we are taking out all those downwards movements here, resulting into a potential reversal happening relatively soon. Then also when we're looking at the price action of Bitcoin at this point, we are getting into that low region, right? So if we are starting to zoom in a little bit more, we can start explaining what has been happening. We've lost 37.5. we started to cascade south, and I was stating last week that if we want to proceed at any bullish perspective, we have to reclaim 37.5, which we did not. And then we started to move south, so lower lows, and then we reject at the previous support level here, and resulting into another test of the support dropping downwards, another rejection, and we are having a constant rejection taking place. So in order to actually get a little bit further upwards, you probably or you preferably want to see something like this taking place, as then we can start expecting some slight reversal. And when we're looking at the higher time frames, or at least we're looking at the 4 hour, we can see that it's getting a little bit overextended. What can we expect at this stage? Well, the volatility will be relatively high. That is for sure. I cannot make the conclusion whether we have been bottoming out, but I can make the conclusion that we will be relatively volatile at this point. And based on that fact, you can actually start making a few scenarios when it comes to the price action of Bitcoin. This was the first one, in which I was assuming that we were going to get towards 34, and then a bounce would result into further bounces upwards, and then a regain of 37.5 would be a trigger for further continuation. When we're looking at the bearish scenario, we didn't even get a retest of 37.5, but we're getting into the scenario that we have here as we get into the lower regions of this downwards momentum. In that case, if we're looking at previous price action on the markets, and when we're looking at potential bottoming scenarios when it comes to this phase, you can just look at previous price action, and then you can see how a reversal works. So in this case, downwards momentum also took place, in which it is just a very long sideways pattern before we started to reverse. And on the lower time frame, you can clearly conclude that you have to regain a previous level before we can start bouncing back up. And during the correction, it takes a very, very long time. So in this case, if we're looking at the price action in itself for Bitcoin, at the moment that it's going to be reversing, which could be something like this, I'm assuming we're going to have such a sideways pattern in which this block will be the heavy resistance zone. I think that if we're going to have some sort of slight bounce based back up, 35 is the first one to actually look at, and then second we are probably going to see TP taking around 36, in which we are going to take some period of sideways action before we can actually start reversing even more. But in that case, if we're looking at the markets, this level at 30k, or at least the one that we're getting to, I don't know where we're gonna bottom out, but 30k is the one that we should be looking at. And based on that fact, I would also already be starting to looking at longs at this stage. You can also conclude that based on the daily time frame, 37.5 to 40k is the crucial breaker. If that breaks back again, we are back in the range and we can start attacking 47.5. So until then, we're probably going to have a sideways period. But during that sideways period, which we also have been seeing previous summer, it's going to take a long time, or at least a heavy volatility, before we are actually going to have a reversal taking place. We also have to look at the DXY, which is having a sweep of the highs here once again. The scenario still stands, and when we're looking at the DXY and we're looking at the price action here, we could conclude that we're getting a bearish divergence here. If we want to start dropping south, it has to lose the level at 103.66. If that happens, I'm assuming we're going to test 100.7, and then we can have some momentum on Bitcoin once again. So this one has to be turning south, and then we're also going to get momentum on the indices, which have to reclaim the level around 30,000 points for the Nasdaq. When we're looking at altcoins, finally, I was stating it already, Chainlink, for instance, it is getting into a higher time frame territory that I really want to get interested, which is that entire region around $8.5. And I think that if you can scoop up your position with Chainlink there, you're doing relatively fine. That's the update for today. Maybe later today I'll be going live, or tomorrow. Make sure to subscribe beneath. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Don't do stupid shit, and I'll see you again later. Have a good day.